So Stacey Porter is the VP of People Operations and Culture at Outset Medical. And I've had the pleasure to get to know Stacey through NOVA, which is a workforce investment board for San Mateo and the 8 cities of northern Santa Clara County. She's fabulous, and she's gonna tell us about 5 skills desperately needed in the future workplace. I actually, in my notebook, have notes from a similar presentation that she gave to the NOVA Workforce Investment Board. And I said, Stacey, you need to do this for Connect. So welcome, Stacey.
Thank you, Roseanne. So glad to be here, you guys, and humbled. There's so many kind of wise minds here and compassionate citizens, so happy to be among you. You know, it's interesting, Jenny started off the day and she had kind of this macro vision of the future of work. And then we heard Peter talk about the future of communities and kind of these grand boulevards and what these cities could be with the promise of change. This panel just talked to us about the communities and how we can actually work with technology for progress and innovation, but without leaving our citizens behind. And so what I'm going to do is actually scale that way down. We're going to talk about an example in a startup of these skills we really need in the workplace. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about my role. You may be used to hearing about HR. We call ourselves People Operations for a reason. We're very focused on human performance in organizations. And a lot of times, organizations build themselves completely counter to what we know about human psychology and human performance. So at Outset, we are really just trying to build a different kind of organization, and we'll tell you about some of those strategies. So let's see here, jumping in. One of the things is to just kind of ground ourselves, and Jenny did this really well for us, in just what is this new workplace? You know, we know more than ever it's social, it's connected, it's technical. We know too that jobs are dead, and not just the tongue-in-cheek version of this, but opportunities are really kind of what exists today. In fact, when you go in and you're having a talk with an employer and you're talking about kind of this opportunity to partner, it's not so much what's labeled in that description, but it's what are you going to do in the first 6 months, what's going to happen in the first 9, what do we need in the first 18 months. So it's really more conversations about opportunities versus kind of these jobs. You know, we used to look at kind of these deep expertise areas and becoming like this deep expert. Now it's really these kind of smart generalists that can shape-shift and they can really transform their skills for an agile and transforming workplace. And then the last thing, and this is controversial, it definitely is in our company, about work. Work is always on. So kind of what is your way of interfacing and being available when you need to be, but also finding boundaries when you have something within your life that actually deserves your attention and presence. So I'm going to jump into these 5 skills. Luckily, I'm at the end here. I know we're like lacking on time, so I promise I'll go fast. But these 5, I think, really matter in the workforce. The first one is cognitive flexibility. And actually, Jenny talked about this. This was kind of in the middle of one of her slides about these skills that we need. And actually, I bet if Barry stayed up here with me, he would chorus this. Cognitive flexibility is the ability to context switch throughout a day into all these different expectations of you at work. Sometimes you are coming into a meeting and you're an expert and you're presenting. Sometimes you're coming into a meeting and you're brainstorming and you were there to kind of cultivate part of the conversation and elevate it. Sometimes you're there to give a status update on where a project is. But during these days in the new workplace, this happens multiple times, 15 to 25 times in a day. I don't know about you guys, but my meetings are scheduled like sitcoms. They're like 30 minutes here, and then there's an hour here. I wish there were 15 minutes, like the TED Talks tell us, but they kind of look like that until it's 6 o'clock and it's time to go home, and then it's time to do something at home and then get back on at 9. So this context, the ability to really switch into these different contexts and maintain that flexibility is huge. Now, what you see here is this quote by Charles Darwin, which I love, but what's probably more interesting is this picture, which is this group of fire ants that have formed an island, and this is kind of keen to their survival. What's interesting about us as humans, as we're individually intelligent, but we're not so collectively intelligent. Look at ants as a species, very adaptable because they're collectively intelligent, but they're not really individually intelligent. So just a skill about kind of the nature of collaboration. This one, it goes by a lot of different names. We used to call it kind of org savvy, but really what it is social intelligence. You know, if any of you are psychologists in here, you read Dan Goleman's work on emotional intelligence. You know, we had all of the, the IQ studies. They've been kind of debunked at this point that IQ is the best predictor of success in organizations. It's not. You know, we had Angela Duckworth's research from UPenn about grit and how important it is to have sheer determination to be able to follow a goal to achievement. Social intelligence is the ability to move in and between people. It's the ability to get into a group of people and elevate a conversation or participate or in some way cultivate a dynamic that's positive. It's the ability to do this in one-to-one scenarios, small team scenarios, and big group scenarios. And we used to think of this as kind of a soft skill in organizations, but I will tell you it is the harder skill. So where we have these kind of hard technical skills and these soft skills, this is the one that really elevates people in workforces. Third skill, and actually, Jenny said the same thing, complex problem solving. So the challenge that we have today are that we are seeing problems that we've never even seen before. So there's no script, there's no template, there's no kind of rite of passage or something that we can harken back to and look to as a way of moving forward. The other thing is, anytime we're solving problems, they have global consequences. So I've worked for global companies. I worked for Roche Pharmaceuticals. I then worked for VMware, and then most recently before Outset Intuitive Surgical. These are companies shaping healthcare, or they're shaping cloud computing, or they're shaping the pharma industry. And anything that we think about and putting into place that kind of supports our business model has long-term ramifications. The other thing is we're challenged by our schools and the way that they teach learning. So much of it is memorization. We think about multiplication and we think about just how we just memorize. Everybody knows that 6 times 4 is 24, but how do we articulate how we know that? You're seeing a shift in schools these days where it really is more kind of articulating that, hey, I know the answer, I've got the what, but here's my how. This is how I got it, and this is also why it's important. But a critical skill. Skill number 4, one of my favorites, hard though, creativity. If you look in LinkedIn, they're always doing these different kind of analysis of the skills that job employers and companies are looking for. Cloud computing is actually number 1. But if you think about kind of this more kind of like right brain skill, creativity comes up over and over again. And what is creativity but the ability to solve problems with relevance and novelty? Me and the job that I have and the team that I'm on, I have one of my colleagues here today, is we're always trying to think about, we know what we need to do. And most people in organizations will tell you they know what they need to be doing. How is different today? It used to be just individually you could just grind through and muscle through kind of, a problem to an endpoint. Now it's collaborative. Now some people might be in the office, some are out of the office. Somebody you may not be able to access for a week because of their schedules. So complex problem solving is very much kind of the what you're doing, but it's also how you get there. The last one, and this one may surprise you, but what I would say here is what's critical in organizations, not just for companies, but really for people, kind of our workers of the future, is activism. And here you have this amazing phenom, this Swedish activist, Greta Thunberg, who has really just kind of launched this climate initiative. She has created a global drumbeat. And what's amazing is it's a cause for her, it's a heart cause. But activism happens in all of our jobs. It happens in our organizations. And the thing that I love to talk with people who are seeking roles at our company is about how are you an advocate or an activist for yourself? And one of the questions I love to ask, and people struggle with this, is without being humble, what are you really, really good at? And if there's any way that we can start preparing people for the new version of work, it's to have them be able to answer that question. Without being humble, what are you amazing at? What is the skill that we're going to notice in the first month that you're at this company? What will be different because you're here for a quarter? Without being humble, what are you really, really good at? So 5 skills, they may seem simple, You know, they may seem lofty, but we can create atmospheres that actually allow these to emerge or allow these to be made. You know, by background, I'm an organizational psychologist, which is a really weird job that probably didn't exist too long ago and certainly wasn't that interesting to companies. It is now, because organizations are interested in creating atmospheres, right? They're interested in creating experiences so people can come into their workplace, thanks guys, and have an experience where they grow and they contribute to something hard. We said that complex problem solving is really important because a lot of these companies are in uncharted land. They're doing things that they've never done before. So this activism, this ability to be an activist for yourself, to be an activist for teams, to be an activist for an organization, to be an activist for a cause is really, really important. So a little advice, if you're open to it, from a talent advocate. Read, listen, absorb, get information wherever you can get it. It is so available today. In fact, if Barry had stayed with me, he would say that it's easy to be a lifelong learner today because content is everywhere. I was listening to a Tony Robbins podcast on the way in here, and he was talking about the excellence factor. And the excellence factor is not only knowing what you can contribute, but how you can question and elevate those around you. Second bullet here is build really unusual connections. I am finding that with my work with Novo, with Roseanne, my team at Outset, my tribe at Intuitive Surgical, even though I don't work there anymore, any company that I've been a part of, there's still people that I love and respect and want to stay in touch with. Keep that group of really unusual suspects. Some of those are usual because they're just people you interface with, but there's something amazing today about the ability to kind of meet up with people, have a quick conversation, learn about their background, and potentially that leads to more. You know, I was having coffee out here, and most of us in here, we can bring water into the auditorium, but you're having your coffee out here. And one of the members, his name is Paul, we were both lamenting that we really wanted to bring our coffee inside. And we were sitting out there, and he said, well, what are you here to do? And I said, well, I'm here to listen, but I'm also going to speak about skills of the workplace. And he said, well, I'm at Medallia, and my whole background is customer experience. It's fascinating to me because we're just building a customer experience department at Outset. Trang, my colleague, heads up employee experience, so many parallels. That was a 30-second meeting that could transform into a meeting of minds or possibly a partnership. Always take the time. Sleep, eat well, exercise. This is important, we know it. I don't know how well we do it these days. You know, there's so much research on sleep and how it cleanses your brain at night. It takes all of that plaque and just kind of washes the day away, literally. And still, many of us are kind of grinding out there. It's 5 hours of sleep, it's 6 hours of sleep, you know, maybe less than that, just to try to keep up with the world always being on. You have to find your boundaries. Stay contemporary with technology, but know how to do basic things in your home. So I have an amazing father-in-law who is a carpenter. He is a builder. He comes into our home, and I have a husband who is an architect, and he can Google and call TaskRabbit, but he can't really do anything in our home. He's kind of decorative in a way. But the father-in-law can do so much in the house. We had a tilted TV that he trued up. He righted that. He rearranged the spice rack that, was kind of falling apart. He comes in, there was a drawer that was off. He's amazing. When he comes in, as soon as after we hug and he asks me how work is, I'm like, would you look at a couple of these things in our home? It's such a skill to be able to make things with your hands, to be able to truly do something. Last two, they're really important to me. Set one ridiculously hard goal and do it, man. There is nothing more human than to have a goal that you set that's personally important that you can achieve to an endpoint. It is liberating. It is the best of us as humans. And then the last one is develop depth. We see so many people come through our doors who have a really special skill set or something that they really want to do, a way that they can contribute and raise their hand and be a part of our company. And they've really cultivated depth. What's interesting is they want to then use it in teams and they want to use it with groups. And that's really the best combination for us at Outset. In startups, right? You've got something you can contribute and you're willing to share it with the group. So if I would have just kind of one last thought here, it is to truly give. You know, all of you in this room, you can create atmospheres where either people with these skills will be drawn, or you create atmospheres where these skills can emerge. You know, in psychology, we used to believe that leadership came from the great man, the person who had all of these traits because of the family they came from or the positions they held. That was debunked. We went into the great trait theory, which was that you're born with certain traits that allow you to be a leader. Now it's about emergence, that you are matched so well with your environment that skills and abilities and talents you have emerge into the environment for the betterment of the group. So, thank you.